Me? The council. I'm the council. Communities council.
County or the other
Have you met each other, Bob?
No, I didn't make it to your meeting.
Hi. You just start
There's not many paths to get there.
No.
Okay, thank you.
Your kind attention, please. We'll start.
Commander. Yes, sir.
Okay, we've got the other mark, and we'll start. Welcome. Thank you very much. I'm Marty McHenry, and our acting. So that Kevin, well, all right. Kevin, we'll talk about you in a minute. We want to get started, and we always start with the Pledge of Allegiance. And
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Before we introduce you, as always, we go around the room and introduce ourselves. And then we'll
Kevin Burke, Director of Greenway. Marcus Stiglionaki, Executive Director of Greenway.
Cindy Lancetta, Conservancy member.
Dee Barrett, Assembly member of the 106th Assembly, which is
Erica Kane and the liaison. Lisa West, village Kristen Brown, representing the Worcester County Health Conservancy.
Betsy Jacks, Executive Director of the Thomas Cole National Historic Site.
Board member.
Linda Vonderheader, Russell County Council member.
Ned Ames, Fox County Council member.
Bob Elliott, council member.
over to this side. And Mark will be introducing you. Good evening.
Wynn Aldridge, Council Member and Red Hook Town Historian.
Scott Keller, Trails and Special Projects Director and Finance Manager for Greenway National Heritage.
Jane McLaughlin, Conservancy. Samantha Hewitt, Orange County. Sally Mazzarella, Council Board Member.
Vincent Altieri, County Executive Day Rock.
Acting Commissioner Hudson,
Andy Schmar, Putnam County. Victor Fieser, Culinary Supervisor.
Linda Cooper, representing Commissioner of Department of Parks and Recreation.
Good morning, I'm Jamie here with the New York State Department of State, representing Secretary of State Steve O'Connell.
Yes?
Wendy Nally, President of the DH Town Historical Society, Vice Chair of the Delaware.
Liz McEnany, Executive Director of the USS Columbia Program.
Brent Glass, formerly of the Smithsonian Institution, now working on the Sing Sing Prison Museum. Jerry Viola, the historic Hudson River Town, is also working on
John Patterson, Councilman Gallatin, New York.
Lisa DeLue, Town of Gallatin.
Matthew Shedd, Town Association, Park Commission, Park Commission.
Hank Osborne, New York, New Jersey, Fairmont. Steve Osborne, Supervisor, John Hall.
Omar Village and Falls Planner.
Tracy Rosier with the LA Group, representing the town of Saratoga and the town of Wilton. Saratoga Council.
Rolo, Chief County Administration. Robert Bowman, Supervisor, Carl Beard, Vice Chair.
Dustin Davis, Town High Court of Litigation, myself, Sally Duffy, the Hudson Chapter of LA Council.
Michael Reed, Buffalo Valley Railroad Association. Good morning, Paul Hesse, Hudson Valley Back in Progress.
John Warren, County Development, Planning and Development.
We're hearing from you, John. I thank you all very much. It's always a pleasure to have Mark speak to us about this wonderful place and the success of the Greenway and great stuff that's going on in Dutchess County. Mark, please.
Good morning, everyone. I got my first hug in a month from Barney, so I feel good. I don't know if he's handing them out to everyone. If you all want one, Barney is available for hugging. It's always a pleasure to welcome you all back to Dutchess County. In our humble opinion, you couldn't pick a better place to convene from time to time. Dutchess, as you know, has had a long tradition of supporting not only the Greenway principles, but was the first county to develop and adopt a Greenway compact, and in so doing, has worked extensively with towns, villages, and cities throughout our community to encourage shared land use, shared planning, and embrace a shared set of principles. I have a long relationship with the Hudson River Valley Greenway, and I just want to offer to you, as a region, we sort of enter into this next phase of economic redevelopment. What I'm referring to more specifically is, as we all engage in this grand challenge to access state dollars for upstate revitalization, I think that there is a new role and new place for the Hudson River Valley Greenway. Later this year, of course, Governor Cuomo will announce economic development resources for upstate communities as part of the Regional Economic Development Initiative. I don't think we're supposed to call the upstate revitalization effort the Hunger Games, but some people seem to. But as long as you win the Hunger Games, you know, really call them whatever you want. From our perspective, though, the Mid-Hudson Valley, and certainly the Hudson Valley as a whole, really does present the greatest opportunity for upstate revitalization. Why? Because we believe that the next stage and next phase of development is going to occur in and around village, hamlet, and city centers. We know that certainly as our community ages, individuals looking for transition out of single-family residences into fully, if you will, full-service communities, and as we welcome younger families and this group of people that I was once, I guess I wasn't once a part of them, but I'm no longer in that age bracket, as Dee Dee reminded me yesterday. But millennials looking for really to live in city and village centers where they have access to transportation. Well, in Dutchess County, our focus has been on redevelopment in and around our train stations and revitalization of our city and village hamlet centers, in particular the Harlem Valley and, of course, Beacon and Poughkeepsie on this side of Dutchess County. We are and have been working aggressively with the city of Poughkeepsie. We believe is well positioned. We think not only to embrace and implement Greenway principles, but to see an entire redevelopment and revitalization beginning in and along the Hudson River. That's why the county worked with the city of Poughkeepsie and other stakeholders, including Scenic Hudson and Walkway over the Hudson and others, to create a waterfront redevelopment strategy for the city of Poughkeepsie to encourage their adoption of zoning code, to implement that, and working with the MTA to bring their property back into the marketplace in the hopes that we can incentivize private development in and around the Poughkeepsie train station and really bring to life the last really public access point along the Hudson River for Dutchess County. And we think that our redevelopment plan is really going to bring new life to the entirety of the city of Poughkeepsie. Additionally, I'm glad to see Lisa in the room. As you know, on the east side of Dutchess County, we remain committed to the completion of the Harlem Valley Rail Trail, having worked to connect the walkway over the Hudson to the Dutchess Rail Trail and ultimately to the trail network in Ulster County. We've created the interconnection of over 25 miles of rail trail for pedestrian and biking use. But the Harlem Valley connection, the last of really our rail trail initiatives, which was the first of our rail trail initiatives, to connect the Harlem Valley Rail Trail in Columbia County, in Dutchess County to a trail network in Columbia County will bring great potential, we think, not only the village of Millerton in the town of Northeast, but certainly great benefit to Columbia County as well. And we hope, as we finalize the engineering and design of the Harlem Valley Rail Trail connection, that we will be able to implement that in 2017. So we've got a lot going on in Dutchess County. This year, 2015, the county budget included an additional $1 million. This is the first recapitalization of the county's open space and farmland protection program, having committed over $6 million in funding to farmland protection nearly a decade ago, preserving some 2,500 acres of active farmland and passive recreation space in Dutchess. For the first time, as I said, now in 7 years, we are recapitalizing that program, and this year have set aside $1 million in direct aid to continue our efforts to preserve open space and farmland. And next year, in the 2016 budget, which I will release in 2 weeks, we will include the creation of an agricultural navigator to assist in the opening of markets, the expansion of active farmland, and I'm not supposed to say this, but I'm in the habit of saying things that I'm not supposed to say. This was to be a regional effort, 3 or 4 counties working together to employ and contract for this agricultural navigator. We will be the only county to have lived up to the commitment to set aside the dollars, and rather than waiting for anyone else, we intend to implement for 2016. This program was to be implemented in 2015, but we're losing time when it comes to making sure that our products and our farms are competitive, not only in the Northeast, but really throughout the country. So in 2016, we will launch our agricultural navigator, and when the other counties are ready to put up some dollars, we'll be more than happy to expand the program. But this is all an effort in Dutchess County to acknowledge the natural landscape, the great vibrancy that exists in our village, city, and hamlet centers, and of course the economic impact that agriculture has in our community, employing individuals and helping to grow Dutchess County's economy. Now I want to end my comments by continuing to encourage you to be engaged in these efforts. The Governor's Regional Economic Development Initiative really does provide an opportunity for the Hudson River Valley Greenway to continue to advocate for smart land use practices, for bringing communities together regardless of municipal boundaries to work together. Because as I've come to realize, the only people who really care about municipal boundaries are municipal officials. And our hope would be that the state, the governor, and others lean on the Greenway to help us expand the reach of good land use practices, the preservation of natural resources, the investment in our village and city and hamlet centers in a way that expands well beyond municipal boundaries. And in this region, unlike most other regions in the state, because we are so linear, your role is that much more valuable and that much more important. There is so much that we can accomplish collectively as a region if only municipalities from the south end of the river work together effectively with those of the north end of the river. And that is the role of the Hudson River Valley Greenway. Now, I had this habit of saying I want to close by closing, so I'm going to close again by first thanking you for your role and for your partnership and your leadership, and we look forward to continuing to work with the Greenway. But Dutchess County has been blessed to have many talented individuals who have helped to write and rewrite Dutchess County's landscape, to preserve its great heritage while at the same time guide development. And later this year, one of our best will be retiring from service in the Department of Planning and Development. Having worked with John Clark, who is here with us today, for the better part of 22 years, I'm younger than he is. It's true. You can laugh. I'm younger than John Clark. For now 22 years as a village mayor, as a county legislator, as a state assemblyman, and now as an admirer as county executive, I can tell you that there is not a sidewalk or a crosswalk, there is not a farm acre nor a natural resource, there is not an access point to the Hudson River, nor a transportation corridor that has not benefited from John Clark's now many years of dedicated service to Dutchess County, and for that we're exceptionally grateful. The only time I had a disagreement with John was when he wanted to paint piano keys in a crosswalk in Tivoli. He thought it was cute. I didn't. But he won. We have a very unique crosswalk, minus the piano keys, in the village of Tivoli when I served as mayor. But John, on behalf of the people of Dutchess County, we'll have more opportunity to do this. But I think today, because of your impact well beyond our municipal boundaries, on behalf of the Hudson River Valley Greenway, we extend our thanks and congratulations to you for many years of service, really to the region. And I'm grateful for your friendship and have learned a great deal from you. So thank you for that. And ladies and gentlemen, I think you're probably going to allow Dee Dee Barrett to say a few words, and before she does, I will tell you that we have a great partnership. But you have an advocate in the state legislature who really understands the value of farmland, the value of these historic hamlets and village centers. And for that, the Hudson River Valley Greenway has a great champion in the legislature, and we are grateful for her partnership. Ladies and gentlemen, enjoy your day, and thanks for coming to Dutchess County.
Perfect, and when he said he was younger, actually, way back when you were first elected, you couldn't vote for yourself. And I had time. So thank you very much for we're delighted you're here. And that we can't be political, but
Maybe I'll be back next year.
maybe we'll make it sure. All right. And now we do D.
Okay. Thank you, Mark, for that introduction. It's all about the hug. That's why we all show up, right? Thank you, Mark, for that nice introduction, and I'm always thrilled to be here and welcome you to my assembly district, to Dutchess County, and just to the fact that you're here talking about these really important fundamental issues that are so close to my heart. In fact, I think since the last time that I was here, I have a new role in the New York State Assembly. I chair a subcommittee on regional tourism development, which was something that I asked for, that I reached out to the speaker and said, we need to look at something that addresses the tourism issue and all the parts of it around agriculture and cultural and historic sites, but also the economic development piece. So it's kind of the confluence of two committees. I serve on tourism and economic development, and I think it's fundamental to ensuring, as I like to say, that the things we love about this region are the economic engines that keep us moving forward and keep us sustainable economically as well as environmentally. But I want to also just mention a couple of other things. We did have actually a great day yesterday. Our Assembly Speaker, Carl Hastie, was here in the region, and Mark was part of, we met at the Harlem Valley Rail Trail, as well as in Mosaic and up in Hudson in my district. But I was really able to show him firsthand not only the glorious beauty of this region, but the importance of the Greenway principles and the impact that they've had. And in fact, it was so effective that at one point when he got back in my car, he said, I really can see the idea of having a second home in this area. And I said, okay, it worked. But I wanted to raise a couple of things. One, a couple of years ago, I talked to you about the concern that we have of the power lines in the Governor's Energy Highway. And that issue remains. So we thought we sort of had pushed it aside and got the PSC to understand that there is no need, that the reforming energy vision will take care of a lot of that, and that destroying the very beauty of this region with high-powered, high-intensity lines will not benefit anybody, least of all the important Hudson Valley economy that's been bouncing back as a result of tourism and agriculture. So I ask you to continue reaching out to the state agencies that are here and the PSC to remind them that this is not a wise way to go, and that we really need to get that off the table and look for other ways to be sure that the energy of New York City, that the lights stay on, that the air conditioners continue to cool all their high rises, but not at the expense of the Hudson Valley. And I also want to just share with you something Mark was talking about, the Regional Economic Development Council's URI process. We have been working, and we've been working with some of you in the room here on this, on an initiative that came out of the parks efforts to get private investors and to look at ways to preserve our historic sites and have the resources to move forward. And as part of that conversation, several of us started talking about the need for artisans and craftspeople and talent to actually work on these sites, because parks, as Parks will tell you and Chippewa will tell you, they get calls all the time from private as well as public institutions saying, do you know somebody who understands slate roofs or wood windows or doors or any of these things? And we really don't have those skills here in the region. So we have been working with our community colleges, with SHPO, to put an initiative, and this was part of the Mid-Hudson's URI package, to put together a program to train the next generation of artisans and craftspeople around both historic preservation inside and landscape and design, and develop business people who can not only do this work, but also can sustain businesses so that they can stay here, bring their families here, and we can really develop this working cohort here in the Hudson Valley where we need that talent so much. So just wanted to share a little bit about what I've been up to. So glad you're here. Look forward to hearing the Columbia's presentation. That's an exciting piece, and that's actually another fit into this. We're talking about the great houses and the sites, but also obviously ships like that will be part of this artisan project as well. So thank you all for being here.
Yes, so I have the honor of introducing our next guest, and I think that President Franklin Roosevelt would be thrilled by the choice of the new director of the museum and library that bears his name, not only because he's a native New Yorker, but as you know, growing up on these lands, FDR was an avid bird collector, and so he'd be thrilled that they named the new director as Paul Sparrow, which I think is great. It rhymes. Before coming here this year and arriving in Hyde Park, Mr. Sparrow was a senior executive with the museum in Washington, D.C. and was instrumental in the design and construction of the interactive museum in the Capitol. He also was a founding partner of the University of Maryland's Future of Information Alliance, a member of the State Department's Diplomatic Reception Rooms Interagency Task Force, a contributor to American University's Journalism Leadership Transformation Initiative, and a consultant for the National September 11th Memorial Museum at the World Trade Center and through Andrew Jackson's Hermitage. So some interesting places that you bring to this experience. And before that, a documentary filmmaker with an Emmy Award to his name. So it's a thrill to have him as the new head of ship here at the museum library. It bears Franklin Roosevelt's name.
Good morning. I know you all really want to get to work, so I'm going to keep this very brief. But first of all, let me really welcome you here. I believe strongly in your mission. I think this is vitally important. The coordination of the communities, the coordination of all of the resources we have here. As a newcomer to the Hudson Valley, I can say that I am astonished at the potential in this area. You have all of the pieces to be one of the great success stories in our recovery right now. You have the environment, you have the walkway, you have the great food, you have the cultural institutions, and you have commitment from the people who are here, all of you around the table today, and that's extraordinarily important. Both the National Park Service and National Archives have big plans for next year. The National Park Service is going to be celebrating its 100th anniversary, and they have a series of events and programs that they're planning on doing here. And the library and museum will be celebrating our 75th anniversary in June 30th. I hope you'll all be there. We're planning a big event. And I hope that this facility, the library, museum, and home, can continue to be a driver of tourism to this area. We had 192,000 visitors to the library this year. That's the most visitors since 1985. I think it's a result of both the extraordinary miniseries from public television by Ken Burns. We call it the Burns Bump. But I also think it's part of the success that the entire region is experiencing right now. You're seeing a surge in tourism to this area, and I think if you can continue to coordinate and put all these resources together, then you have extraordinary success in your future. I can say I'm personally honored to have been given this opportunity to manage what I consider to be a national treasure. This is, of course, the first presidential library, but also, in my opinion, the best. And of course, we have the advantage of being here in one of the most beautiful locations in the world. So I'm just going to say thank you for coming today. We hope you will come back and continue your meetings here at the library and museum, the Wallace Center, because we want you here. And I hope that next time I'm sitting around the table as one of you. So thank you. Kevin, back to you.
So I think our next step is just to review the agenda and any board comments on the agenda. Okay. Yes.
I'd like the opportunity to make a quick announcement.
Yeah, please.
So I wanted to just announce that DEC has released a new round of estuary grants. We awarded $770,000 in grants yesterday, and it supports planning for conservation of natural resources, including everything from flood resiliency to natural resource inventories and open space protection. I take my board membership on the Greenway very seriously, and we give 5 extra points in our grants to any project that supports a Greenway plan. And I feel like most if not all of the projects that we funded are completely in line with the Greenway objectives and will support conservation planning in the Hudson Valley that will advance the Greenway's mission as well as our estuary program mission within DEC. And just a shout out to Dee Dee from the legislature. This is New York State Environmental Protection Fund money that we were able to award. So the legislature makes that possible for us to give these grants. Thank you for that. And let everyone know we'll be coming out with a new grant application package hopefully very soon.
That's great news, and I think deserves think that one of the next things that is on the agenda here, it's a little bit out of order, but it's just kind of, we want to keep the flow here, it's just to formally open the Conservancy meeting, just call to order, so it's now officially open. And we're going to begin with a presentation which I think we're all looking forward to, which is on the SS Columbia project. So I don't want to waste any more time, let's get right to it, and we're all waiting for you to sign up for it.
Now that we have the walkway over the Hudson, Kevin's Tower of Victory's roof is funded, we now need to focus on the SS Columbia. The SS Columbia is what Assemblywoman Barrett was talking about, what Mayor Molinaro was talking about, that is economic development, tourism, tying our main streets to the waterfront and tying all of this to the river. Before we get started, I'd like to thank the Governor, Commissioner Harvey, the Office of Historic Preservation, Linda, and Mark and Barney and the Greenway for the support of this project. So for a little bit of background and where we are now, I'd like to introduce you, Ms. McInerney.
Hi, thank you very much. Thanks for having us today. For those of you who don't know the SS Columbia, this is an image of our Grand Dame, a 113-year-old ship built in 1902 by the same architects who built the great Hudson River dayliners. So just to kind of give you an overview of this project, Bob mentioned that the project really is about reconnecting New York City to the Hudson Valley, connecting the Hudson Valley waterfront cities and towns to one another, and giving a destination at the end of Main Street again, seeing the ship come into the waterfront. So here's just an image of what New York Harbor used to look like, bustling with ships. You can see steamships in the foreground. But this idea of getting out on the water was something that everyone had access to. This idea of being on a day excursion boat was something that everyone had access to from the end of the 19th century to the 1970s. You all look too young to remember the Hudson River dayliners, but if you do remember them, we're going to be doing an oral history project, so you can come up and talk to me afterwards about that. But this is an image of one of the dayliners, and I just wanted to show you a few images to give you a sense of the scale of these boats, the number of people who rode them, oftentimes as many as 3,200, and where these boats were going. Here we see the boat heading up towards, heading probably en route to Bear Mountain, but the boats connected people from New York City to the natural resources of the Hudson Valley, to Bear Mountain, to go hiking, to the Hudson Valley rivers and cities, Hudson Valley cities and towns rather. Here we go, the boats arriving at Bear Mountain, in Kingston, at Kingston Point Park, familiar sight to all of us here today. Poughkeepsie, you can see the walkway in the background, Albany, and Newburgh's waterfront. These boats were much loved and lamented when they went out of service in the 1970s. Here's a New Yorker cartoon an article by the author Tony Hiss remembering what it was like to be aboard one of these great boats. These boats had ballrooms where you had uninterrupted views of the Hudson River. They had beer decks oftentimes on the third deck. There were as many as 4 decks to most of these vessels. But one of the highlights was really seeing the steam engine in motion. So these boats, being on a steamboat, it's a silent experience. Steam is silent power, so you would just glide along the water, being able to take advantage and look at all the landscapes as you went past, and be able to look down at the engine and see the steam engine in motion. The paraphernalia and merchandise and brochures you could get while being on these boats really promoted the Hudson Valley as a region. They often gave maps and advertisements, all kind of touted the beauty of the Hudson Valley. This was a place that you heard Hudson Valley, there was an image that popped up in your mind of what this place was and what you were supposed to experience there. From the natural beauty to the riverfront cities and towns, the way that the Hudson Valley was marketed by many of these dayline boat promoters was as a region and as a whole. So to our project, it was the idea of a visionary named Richard Anderson, who you can see pictured here, who grew up in Nyack on the Hudson River and really had a dream of seeing these boats come back to service. So Richard went out seeking a boat that could carry somewhere in the realm of 2,000, 3,000 people from New York City to the Hudson Valley, and he was able to find that boat in Detroit. So Richard went out to Detroit, found the SS Columbia. So again, it was built by Frank Kirby with interior designs by Louis O'Keel, who had done the great Hudson River boats, the Henrik Hudson, the Peter Stuyvesant. So if you remember any of those boats or have seen photos, the interiors of this boat are very much identical to this. And this boat was a pleasure boat. It took people from downtown Detroit to an amusement park island, much the same way that the Hudson River Dayland boats took people from New York City up to Kingston Point Park or other amusement parks. This is just an image of the ballroom of the boat, so you get a sense of what these spaces were like. So as I said, when Richard found the boat, it was in Detroit. And within this past year, we've moved the boat from Detroit to a shipyard in Toledo, and the boat is now in New York State. It arrived in Buffalo in September. So I just wanted to give you a sense of the work that we've accomplished this past year, where we are now, and our hopes to have the boat here either next summer or the following summer, with the restoration taking place in Kingston. So if any of you know Clay Hiles from the Hudson River Foundation, this is Clay Hiles bidding the boat adieu to Detroit on our way to Toledo. We arrived in Toledo, and 24 hours later, the boat was fully out of water. We discovered that there were 2 tons of zebra mussels affixed to the hull of the boat. So it was quite, the first ton had to be scraped off by hand. The second ton we were able to remove with machinery. But once we removed the zebra mussels, we realized that the hull was in a bit worse condition than our surveyors had assumed, than the Coast Guard had assumed. So we ended up replacing about a third of the hull at a cost of $1.6 million. Here you see the zebra mussels on the left, removed on the right. This is a photo of our project manager in the center, Ann Loading, who is a tugboat captain based out of Kingston, who's done a number of restoration projects and is working on the Dade Peckinpah project up in Albany. But Ann is meeting with the Coast Guard, who is in the shipyard with us 2 or 3 times a week, overseeing all the work and making sure we'd be certified for the ultimate tow to the Hudson River. Here you can see the steel panels that have been removed, cropped and removed. Toledo is a great place to do a lot of this work. There are some of the best steel workers and riveters in the country are still working on the Great Lakes, so we're able to take advantage of being out in the Great Lakes area for this. Here you can see the boat buttoned back up. We replaced over 700 rivets on the boat, and also did repair work to the upper decks, securing the roof, in part securing the roof for winter in Buffalo, which we knew was on the horizon. Before we left Toledo, we had one of the first open houses on the boat. It was the first time people had really had access to the boat since it went out of service in 1991. And immediately we had 240 people sign up for our tours. And it was an incredible turnout of memories, tears, stories. So this couple drove down to Ontario because they wanted one last dance in the ballroom. So it's been an amazing experience to start to get people back on the boat, because the boat is meant to be a living, breathing vessel. And we're excited to finally be in Buffalo. We'll be able to do a lot more open houses like this. This is the boat leaving the shipyard, heading into the Maumee River, making her way to Lake Erie. 235 miles to Buffalo. This is Columbia arriving in Buffalo. We had a tremendous arrival celebration in Buffalo, and immediately felt we had arrived in a community that was taking us in hand. We were greeted by a flotilla of boats, a fireboat cutter, tall ships, kayakers. So this is us arriving in Buffalo Harbor. And this is where the boat is now currently docked. She's docked in the Buffalo River, adjacent to the old grain elevators at a place called Silo City. So if anyone is up for a trip to Buffalo, we'd welcome you out there. Maybe spring is a better time to extend this offer. But you're all welcome to come out and see her in Buffalo while we've got her there for the next year. But this shot, you can see a sense of all the work that was done to the hull. The hull was newly painted. The stack was newly painted. What we're doing now in Buffalo for these next few weeks is we're basically buttoning the boat up for winter. So we've secured the engine room. You can't, it's all boarded up. We're doing work on the upper decks. We're installing storm tarps. So we'll be able to survive any snow that Buffalo throws at us, which apparently is supposed to start next week. There's our crew member, Jono, doing some construction work. But the ultimate goal is to have the boat here in the Hudson River. And the plan is to tow the boat from Buffalo to the Hudson River either this coming summer, 2016, or the following summer, 2017. The boat is too big for the Erie Canal. She's 216 feet long and is about 60 feet wide, so she's not going to make it through the Erie Canal. So we're going to take her through the St. Lawrence Seaway out past Quebec down the eastern seaboard. So this was why for us it was critical to have the Coast Guard in the shipyard nearly every week overseeing this work. So the Coast Guard has already signed off on the condition of the hull, so she will be able to make this tow to the Hudson River. But these are some renderings of the boat. Here it is gliding under walkway over the Hudson. But we really, as Bob mentioned, we really see this as being a way to get tourists to the Hudson Valley, to capitalize on the resources here, the natural resources, all the activities that are happening in the cities and towns, and to be, in a way, a floating cultural icon of the Hudson Valley, to be a place of promoting the arts and culture and everything that's happening in this region. Here are some shots of the interiors of what she'll look like. This is the grand staircase. There's a mahogany staircase in the center that we've started some restoration on. This is a shot of the ballroom, and this was the first ballroom on a steamboat of its kind. So you have this steel skeleton architecture that was incredibly unique, in which the Hudson River Dayline boats actually copied Columbia as the model. We've recently been fortunate to have a lot of press arriving in Buffalo and finally making our way to the Empire State. It was a great opportunity for us. But we've been working in partnership of this idea again of, in line of the Hudson River Dayliners, of the great maps and brochures they used to promote. We've just completed a partnership with Google of street mapping the Hudson River. So if any of you have been on Google and have dragged your yellow figure onto a street to see a 360-degree of what's happening on a street, we just did that for the river. So you'll ultimately be able to drag your little yellow figure into the Hudson River and get 360-degree views of the landscape on either side. And we did that in partnership with Google, but also the Hudson River Foundation and the fireboat John J. Harvey. And we went all the way from the Statue of Liberty up to Waterford. So we'll keep you posted on when that map will be unveiled, which most likely is the end of this week. But the wonderful thing about that type of map is that all the cultural organizations in the Hudson Valley will have the opportunity to pin information to this map, so it can really become this robust map of what the Hudson Valley is like, why people should come visit this unique place, how they can get there. And for us, it's an opportunity for people to take a virtual trip up the Hudson before they can experience the real deal on Columbia. We've had Reebok made sneakers inspired by the boat. The boat's been in a number of films and other productions. But just again, to give you the sense of the timeline, the plan is that we'll have the boat tow it to the Hudson River, stopping in New York City and then going up to Kingston in the Rondout. We'll do the restoration, which will take about a 3-year build out, and we hope to have the boat back in service in 2020. So, thank you very much.
See this boat coming up the Hudson. Picture her stopping at the Sing Sing Museum on the way up, stopping at Newburgh, Beacon, Kingston, Hudson. And I think if we have a minute, we can take questions. But the question we always did is financially viable? As an event space in Manhattan, we projected that this vessel would not only break even, but it can make money and sustain our more altruistic ideas around that much. Any questions? All right, thank you all very much.
So the boat operated in the Great Lakes, freshwater, and generated by steam. So what's the plan to have it operate in the brackish Hudson River?
There are some issues with the engine and cooling, but they could be dealt with. It's all a matter of money.
We have some engineers who are already looking at redesigning the intake system. Because right now it does take the fresh water in from the lakes to cool the engine. So the boat actually has a double bottom. There are two steel hulls. So what we think we'll be able to do is keep water in that double bottom, and that can be used to cool the engines.
Dare I ask, what's the total price tag for the restoration?
The price tag is between 15 to 18 million, and we've raised 3.1 million so far. 3.1. We've spent a great deal of it in the shipyard.
You can't see it, it's all underwater. But with all of your help, should be up and down the river. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you both, and thank you, Bob, especially. You're such a great citizen of the Greenway. Happy to have you present on that. It's interesting, my father-in-law is now 86, was a longshoreman in Brooklyn for many years, and he was just a city kid, and he's lived his entire life in the same neighborhood in Brooklyn. But one of the sterling memories of his youth is his public school in Brooklyn, one time, took a boat up to Bear Mountain, and he's now 86, and he still can visualize that day clear as crystal, and it's amazing the impressions that certain moments can have, and that experience of the river for a city kid, it stays with him his whole life. So you never know the effect that an experience like Columbia or any other experience on the water can have, and that's part of what I think inspires our work. We can't forget about the kids in the city because they yearn for things like the Hudson River and the green kind of landscape that we can offer them. So now moving more to the business side of the meeting, the next thing on the agenda is to discuss the minutes from the previous meeting, which were the June meeting. I trust everyone on the board has had a chance to review the minutes, and at this time I just want to see if there are any comments or questions. Yes? Well, that's great, so we already have a motion to accept the minutes. And a second? Can we have a second? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Terrific, okay. So that can now move quickly to the next portion of the meeting, which is the Conservancy portion of the meeting, which is already opened. And the first two items are very much business oriented. And for those who are going to, Scott Keller, just our city hand, such a great resource, come up here and talk us through both the healthcare flexible spending account item and also the fiscal report. Scott?
Thank you, Kevin. The Conservancy has a flex plan, much like the council does through the state. Ours is through a private company. We currently have non-discriminatory language in the flex benefit plan. The agreement that we have with them, they've changed the language and they have asked that we pass a resolution accepting the new language.
So I'd like to call for a motion on that first item. Okay, first, and a second, great. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? It's passed.
It's hard to be the person taking the minutes and doing the presentation. Mark also asked me to update you on the status of the finances for the Conservancy. We had our audit in mid-September. The auditors did not report any issues. We did not have to have a program audit this year, which is a more in-depth audit because the limits on earned income for the trigger a program audit were raised this year by the IRS. So that should save us a few $1,000s in auditing costs. Both of our shorelines grants that we manage for the Hudson River National Estuary Research Reserve, totaling about $1 million, have completed. We've received all funds, and we received about $100,000 in administrative fees for managing those grants over the last few years. And we currently have no grants receivable. So we're all caught up in the money that is due to us.
I can just say it's my honor to serve as treasurer of the Greenway, and there's no better partner than Scott. I can't tell you, I'm involved in a lot of organizations and have to manage a lot of different accounts, and the Greenway is always the one that gives me the most calm. We're just in such good hands with Scott and the team, so thank you, Scott. Now the fun part, which is the Greenway Conservancy Trail Grant Awards, and there are quite a few, and some very exciting ones. And to walk us through those, we have our Executive Director, Marcus Millions. Mark?
Well, thank you, Kevin. We love to see all of you come to our meetings. It's always good to see a good crowd, and we can always guarantee a good crowd if we're giving away a lot of money, so I definitely appreciate that. I'd first like to thank our friends in the New York State Legislature. I know Dee Dee was here, and there are other people. If it were not for the legislature, we would not have money for this grant program this year. Obviously, the legislature partnering with the governor resulted in the New York State budget last year, including $100,000 in EPF funds for these trail grants. The Greenway has been offering these trail grants since 1992, and since the inception of this program, have allocated $2.4 million for small catalyst projects. And we have a collection of grant projects here today that exemplify that spirit and that sort of critical project to help get the ball rolling on larger trail projects and larger trail connections. So without any further ado, I'm going to start with the grant announcements. The first grant is to the town of Fishkill in Dutchess County for the development and planning for a Wappingers to Beacon Greenway Trail. This was one of the highest rated projects that we received this year. It focuses in on the river corridor, focuses in on a trail system that has connections not only to the river, but also to other trail connections that are coming online right now, including the Hudson Fjord Trail and Walkway of the Hudson. To say a few words about the project here is Supervisor Bob McCullough from the town of Fishkill. We'll come to you.
Thank you, Mark. I truly appreciate it on behalf of the people of the town of Fishkill, what the Greenway does and what it has done for us. This seed money is tremendously important. And just a quick report, a lot of our partners are here from the last grant we got, which was an $11,000 grant on the Fjord Trail, which brought about a $935,000 award through the CFA, which leveraged a very generous donation through the Hudson Highlands Land Trust of another $3 million. So we're about to put $4 million into the ground next year. That's incentivized the city of Beacon. We're looking at trails up the Maybrook line to connect with the Steinhouse Trail that heads to the Walkway, and we have quite a bit of land acquisition done already on this connection from Beacon. It's about a 1.6-mile trail. There's just some alignment issues that we have on the southern edge of that. This will go to engineering to help us get that figured out. So again, tremendous amount of results that we get from Greenway money. We truly appreciate the award. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Bob, and thank you, and congratulations on the grant award. It was for $10,000, and I think Bob hit the nail on the head. It takes partnerships, it takes working with a lot of other people, and I think that project in particular is a great example of the way the Greenway grants are intended to work. Small seed money parlayed into bigger and more significant dollars for construction. The next grant is to Palisades Park Conservancy to improve a trail system that's adjacent to the Mootna Creek at the Knox's headquarters state historic site. It's a great project that connects recreation with history. And to say a few words about the project is Matt Shook from the Palisades Park Conservancy.
Yes, just first thanks to Barney and to Mark. The Greenway has done a lot for the parks, particularly in the last couple of years. Since I've been here, we've done a small educational trail at Tonga Mountain, and now this trail, which will connect the Ellison House at Knox's headquarters state historic site down to the brook. Hopefully, as part of a larger trail project that will help people in that community to have access to the creek, which there isn't a lot of around here. So in the next few months, we'll finish up the plans to work with the trail conference, and hopefully by spring, early summer of next year, the trail will be mostly done.
Great, thanks, Matt. That grant was for $3,250. The next grant is to the Village of South Niagara, Rockland County. This is for a project to interpret and develop signage, interpretive signage for the Erie Railroad Greenway Trail. This project includes partnerships between multiple municipalities and multiple historical societies. And I'm not sure if anybody here is from the village of South Nyack. Anybody? Takers? No takers? I will announce that grant is for $5,200. The next one is to the town of Saratoga, up in Saratoga County, for the old Champlain Canal Basin Trailhead. The work that's being done currently on the Champlain Canal Trailway is essentially the work that we see as the vision for the Greenway Trail and the northern stretches of the Greenway area. And this project is one of those catalytic projects that sets the stage for more trail connections and more trail use in the Saratoga County region. Here to say a few words about the project is Tracy Clothier from the LA Group.
Thank you so much to the Greenway for this lift to the town of Saratoga. It's to design and construct a trailhead that will be the beginning and end of a very significant section of the old Champlain Canal, which is, it will start at the Schuyler House, which is up in Schuylerville, New York, and it will end at Garnsey Lane, but it will also take in the new Sword Surrender site, which is being developed on the along Route 4. So it's a really significant piece. It's along the Hudson River in a fairly scenic part of the trail, and it's part of a $370,000 grant from the Eastern Federal Highways Administration. So this is one of the only federal grants that have been issued to New York State. So it's kind of a new thing for us, but very exciting to be able to provide the actual trailhead. And thank you very much.
Thank you, Tracy. It sounds like a great project. That grant's for $10,000. The next one's to the town of Wilton, again up in Saratoga County. This is for the town of Wilton Open Space Recreation Pathways Plan. This is the type of plan that communities really need to develop if they're thinking about connections and working towards a more connected trail system for the community, not just about trail systems in rural areas, but also how to connect street systems, hamlets, and centers to other recreational opportunities. This grant is for $5,000. I don't think anybody here is from Wilton. Oh, Tracy will talk about it?
Yes.
Great. Tracy.
Representing the town of Wilton. And what makes this project significant is that you all probably know the town of Wilton in Saratoga County is exploding in growth. And there's subdivisions everywhere, and they have been responding with open space planning and trailheads and trails that are connected throughout. This plan is going to concentrate on Camp Saratoga, a master plan for Camp Saratoga, which is part of the Wilton Wildlife Preserve and Park. So if you've all heard about that, it's a significant Harner Blue butterfly site. It will connect through subdivision and end up in the town's signature park called Gavin Park. So we're also very thankful for that gift. Thank you.
Great, thanks, Tracy. Subdivisions are almost as popular as horses up in Saratoga. The next grant is for the D&H Canal Historical Society in Ulster County. This is to reset and repair a bridge on the historic 5-block walk down there at the museum site. It's an amazing trail system with potential for additional connections to more trail systems around the area. We have Bill Merchant, who is the head of the D&H Canal Historical Society, say a few words about the project.
First, on behalf of my Board of Trustees in Ulster County, I want to thank the Greenway for helping us fund this project. In 2013, the heavy rains undermined the footings on one end of the bridge, and the bridge that was a replacement for a historic bridge that had been over a loading quay throughout the 19th century fell into the quay. Initial estimates from the people who actually built the bridge were over $100,000 to do this job. We found a local contractor willing to donate a lot of the time and have a budget of $10,000, and this would get us 3/4 of the way to replace this bridge. We host 2 or 3 times a year. I give tours, including this Sunday at 2 p.m. If any of you are in High Falls, New York, if you meet in front of the museum, I'll give you a guided tour of the 5-block walk. The D&H Canal is historically very important to the area. Really informed the history of all the towns along this route, and we're very thankful this will connect to the New York O&W Rail Trail, the other side of the Roundout Creek eventually, in keeping with the Greenway's mandate. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Joe. and congratulations. And also, I appreciate never missing an opportunity to give a plug for an upcoming event. Our next grant is to the town of Marlborough in Ulster County. This is a grant to connect Milton and Park to upper sections of the park system in the town of Marlborough. Here to say a few words about the project, we have Supervisor Steve Osborne.
And thanks once again to the Greenway for helping Marlborough. It was just about a year ago that we got the Blueway designation for this trailhead, for a kayak trailhead. And this trail is going to connect Lower Park to the Upper Park, which helps to connect the revitalized hamlet of Milton, which is coming along just wonderfully. If you ever drive through Milton nowadays, you'll see just wonderful beautification projects going on. We're trying to get the people down to the river, and this trail will help do it. Also, it enhances the Blueway project by building campsites and providing very scenic views of the river, and hopefully views of from the top of the eagles flying over the river there, which is fairly common. So once again, thank you very much to Greenway. I know that we've also submitted a other trails grant for the town of Marlborough, and I hope to be talking to you about that soon.
Great, thank you, Supervisor. And I would be remiss, and Scott would scold me after the meeting if I didn't compliment the folks in Marlborough for the tremendous work they've done to develop Milton Landing Park as a premier site along our Hudson River Greenway Water Trail. Almost through entirely volunteer efforts, they were able to build a campsite and create a really solid destination and an asset for the water trail. So thank you for doing that. The next grant we have is to the Village of New Paltz over in Ulster County for Millbrook Preserve Trail Access Enhancements. This project will build kiosks and facilitate more public access to a developing preserve in the Village of New Paltz. Here to say a few words about the project is my fellow partner in crime in the Hudson Valley, David Gilmore.
The Village of New Paltz, in collaboration with the town of New Paltz, thanks the Greenway Trails Conservancy for this grant for resource development in Millbrook Preserve. In following on from the 2004 open space plan of the town and the establishment of the Clean Water Open Space Program, funded by an Open Space Bond Act in the community, in 2007, the town purchased 42 acres in the heart of the community, in the core area of the community. And in 2009, we started the formulation of the Millbrook Preserve Management Plan, the idea of unifying 200 acres of core conserved area right adjacent to the heart of the village. And now in 2015, we've also purchased another 45 acres of open space, and therefore are putting these 90 acres of land into parkland, both by the village and town, through an intermunicipal agreement. We've applied for a larger consolidated funding application to develop 2 miles of recreation trails within Millbrook Preserve, which is also an important ecological stepping stone within our broader natural heritage of our area. And this project funds development of a trailhead closest to Main Street and the Shaw and Gump Scenic Byway and other resources of tourism and recreation development. So this will be an important passive recreation project within the village of New Paltz. So again, thank you.
Thank you, David. Yeah, it's going to be a great project for New Paltz and really great access for the people that live in the village. Our next project is another New Paltz-centric project. This is for the Walk Hill Valley Rail Trail. This is to help them refresh and develop new interpretive and directional signs for the rail trail. This project is, the Walk Hill Valley Rail Trail is one of the region's premier rail trail networks. They're planning right now for additional connections to the city of Kingston, which will eventually connect you up to the Ashokan Reservoir. And this project will be a great asset for the village of New Paltz, but also allow more people to experience the trail and learn about the history and ecology of the area surrounding the trail. So here to say a few words about the project is John Carter, who's on the board of the Walk Hill Valley Rail Trail.
I'm Michael Reed.
Oh, Michael Reed, I'm sorry.
I want to thank certainly the Greenway for all their support in the past, and we look forward to working together with you and to represent the caring and commitment, and above all, your confidence in getting something done as important as this. Our rail trail is now 22 miles in length, and I for many years, it was just sort of just a halfway trail, and with the wonderful trestle, we had the opportunity to connect the two ends of the trail, and to connect our many communities. The three things that we sort of focus on, I think, are best sort of microcosm of everything we support, which is nature, community, and history. In our nature, hearing today about agriculture, we have a wonderful agricultural community, CSAs, family-owned and small farms, and we soon have an additional brewery, two distilleries on our rail trail. Community, our rail trail also connects many communities, as it has once before as a railroad, but now also as a local transportation, alternative transportation network. And certainly as part of our history, we're going to highlight not just our Huguenot origins, but also our Native American origins. We have, I know there's a dispute about which is the oldest street in America. Well, we have about 5,000 years of history right there in New Orleans. We look forward to sharing that. Thank you.
Thank you. Congratulations. It's an interesting prospect to be able to do distillery tours by bike. I kind of like that. The next grant is to the Teatown Lake Reservation down in Westchester County. This grant is to build a bridge at the Kitchewan section of the trail network in Teatown. This trail connection will open up access from the Teatown Lake Preserve to additional regional rail trail networks. This is a relatively modest grant of $1,795. And here to say a few words about the project is Aaron Fumarola from Teatown.
So yes, first of all, I want to thank the Greenway for voting to include Teatown as a natural heritage area. We truly value that. For anyone who doesn't know, Teatown Lake Reservation is a nature center about an hour south of here, just outside of Ossining, and we have about 1,000 acres and 15 miles of trail. This particular trail grant, as you said, is very modest. My next submission, I'll take that as a cue. I'll add another zero. But I don't have to explain the importance of enlarging the trail linkages to anyone here, so we do appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you. And our final grant in this series of grant awards for the Conservancy Trail Grant Program is the town of Yorktown. And this will construct a trailway that will connect FDR State Park to additional trail resources, including the Old Croton Aqueduct Trail. No, I got it wrong. Well, Jane will tell us more about this particular project.
I'm speaking on behalf of the town of Yorktown. I'm speaking on behalf of the town of Yorktown, which I've been a resident for a long time. This particular trail, which is 1/3 length, goes from FDR State Park, across Downland Drive, over to the North County Trailway. And it's been a dream of Linda Cooper when she was our town supervisor to get that connection to the state park. She's even more delighted because she's now the Taconic regional director, and she's seeing that it's come to fruition. Although it's only 1/3 of a mile, it's critical. The Friends of FDR State Park are building the other piece, and we'll be able to walk all kinds of places in Yorktown thanks to this grant. And what happens is the town has applied for a recreational trails grant, and this is part of the match. If they don't get the recreational trails grant, it would be the way the trails grant. Thank you very much.
Thanks for that description. I apologize for getting it wrong. So all these grants represent about $69,000. And again, our investments in these small projects really pay dividends in the long run with bigger and better projects, additional grant applications, and construction, which is what we need the most. So with that, I'll turn it back over to the chair to call for a motion and to ask for any recusals on specific projects.
Thank you, Mark. So it really is a remarkable slate of awards this time, and you just look at the geographic coverage of them, and it's from Saratoga all the way down to Westchester and on both sides of the river. It's really encouraging, and I think it's a joy for all of us to play this role in seeding so many of these great projects. So are there any recusals on any of these grants we should take note of?
T-Town is involved with the Trail Conference, which is helping implement that grant, and obviously the town of Yorktown.
Okay, so two for Jane. Yes.
City Lanzo, the Melton Landing Park, I recuse myself from voting on that.
Okay. Thank you. Anyone else? Okay, so with that, I'm going to call for a motion, a single motion on all these awards. Jane? Thank you. you. Second? Kristen? Thank you. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? The awards are granted. Thank you both so much. I'd like to thank you all so much. We now, next on our agenda, have an update on the Water Trail Guidebook, and for that we turn back to Scott, who wears many hats.
Thank you, Kevin. The Water Trail Guidebook that I showed you at the last meeting is now published, available for sale as a membership benefit through the Hudson River Water Trail Association, hrwa.org. It is 240 or so pages, and all of our sites are in it. And if I might steal a minute, I brought other shiny stuff. We got our first full draft of a map for the water trail site. This is map 2 from Fort Edward to Coxsackie. And it's going to look like that. Except not quite as shiny, and it'll be folded when we actually get it done. This map will be going out to the review committee shortly to check for mistakes and errors, which there are some on it. And this is the interpretive set. Some of these pictures will change as we've put the text in. We realize there are better pictures that can be associated with this, but this is pretty close to what it will look like. And if anyone wants to, excuse me? 115, including the canal operation sites. If anyone wants to get it. If anyone wants a closer look after the meeting, I will be around for a few minutes.
Thank you so much, Scott, and thank you for all you do for the water trail. It's an incredible realization of your dream. It's really coming to fruition. And the last item on our agenda for the Conservancy portion of the meeting is trail gap analysis, and for that we turn back.
Well, I just hope we have for the land trail what you've been able to develop for the water trail, Scott, someday. And the project I want to talk about now is a step in that direction. Coming out of our strategic plan as a board, the board identified really one of the priority projects that we should refocus on is the Greenway Trail. We all felt that that served as an opportunity to be a niche for the Greenway to fulfill in the region. And we also felt that there was a way for us to set us on a path to raise money and to get foundation support for the development of trail plans and other resources, to amplify the investments that we make through our Greenway Trail program. So we have developed and are using some of our federal National Heritage Area money to pay for an RFP to request for proposals to develop a gap analysis for the entire Greenway Trail system from New York City to Albany. Now, this is intended to be a visionary document to start the conversation and to be a way to engage regional stakeholders in the conversation about where the Greenway Trail could go. The last time we looked at this issue was in 2004, so it's been over 10 years. And with all the rail trails and trail networks coming online now is the time to come back to the region and ask these questions again. How can we make the connections and fill the gaps in the Greenway Trails so that we can have this, what will be a really tremendous regional asset of a trunk line Greenway Trail system that somebody can take and walk from New York City all the way to the Adirondacks through the beautiful Hudson River Valley. So that RFP is out. We are hopefully going to receive a lot of interesting and innovative proposals back by the due date on November 18th. We will keep you updated on the progress of it. We are in the process of convening a stakeholder oversight committee for the project. I've spoken about this project with some of you already, and I look forward to receiving your guidance and your sage advice as we navigate through this process. We anticipate doing a couple stakeholder input meetings and using other techniques to engage regional stakeholders in this planning process. So at the end, in about the summertime of 2016, we will have what will be a vision for the Hudson River Valley Greenway Trail, and will help us prioritize future investments and prioritize future connections so that we can work with partners to make sure that we're completing what was one of our first charges back when the Greenway was created in the early 90s. So I look forward to working with you all on that, and with that, I'll turn it back over to Kevin.
Thank you, Mark. And that does conclude the Conservancy portion of the meeting. So now we turn over to the one and only Barnabas McHenry for the Greenway Community Council's portion of the meeting.
It's a wonderful thing that you're doing with this trail. This goes back, we've been working at this for more than a dozen years at least. And by this time next year, we might be able to say that we're close to completion, right?
Well, we're close to something.
I'll get it through, don't worry. And so now we're on to the Communities Council. I'm calling the meeting to order. And the first order of business is to ask for your support for a proclamation for our late and much missed member Abel Garrigan, Kingston, of course. Let me read this quickly and ask for your approval. Whereas Abel Garrigan, the Ulster County representative to the Greenway, was an outstanding member of the Greenway. And whereas Abel Garrigan provided to the Greenway time and much of his considerable wisdom about the challenges of local government and economic development in the Hudson River Valley. And whereas Abel Garrigan attended meetings of the Greenway and participated in the affairs of the Greenway and the joint boards of the Greenway. And whereas the death of Abel Garrigan in August 2015 saddens every member of the Greenway. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the joint boards of the Greenway and the Greenway Conservancy do recognize the contributions of Abel Garrigan and note his presence and cheerful need will be greatly missed by all, and do send our condolences to his family. May I have a motion, please? Moved, seconded. All those in favor? Aye. Thank you. And this suitably signed and framed for where we will give it back to you. Okay. Now that it's a particular pleasure to ask John Clark to say a few words, and we have something nice to give him. And those of you who can remember, back in the beginning, Mark was still in school. Dutchess County got us started. It really did. And John Clark made it happen. It was 15 years. Anyway, it was a long time ago. John, where are you? Come on up here, please. You're retiring, but you're not leaving the county, right? You promise? John Clark.
Thank you. It's always been my pleasure to work with the Greenway. In a time when government programs are not so popular, in a time when politics are so intensely divided, in a time when local governments complain constantly about top-down government and state mandates, the Greenway is an exception to all those things. It's widely popular, it's built from the bottom up. It has broad bipartisan support through Democratic and Republican administrations. The program is entirely voluntary, costs local governments next to nothing. I can't think of anything that tells us. It works through incentives and guidelines, not any state requirements. It's designed to create cooperation between state and county and local governments, between public and private sectors, between advocates for both economic development and environmental protection. It's what Greenway has been doing in the Hudson Valley should be a model for the rest of the state and the nation. Greenway is government at its best, not just bureaucratic. It sells by its own success stories. And I think the county executive talked about some of the success stories in Dutchess County, and we'll go over those. But I did want to bring out one particular example, this sort of update of recent news. The town of Red Hook passed a Centers and Green Spaces plan and zoning law back in 2011 based on the county Centers and Green Spaces program, which was instituted in the Greenway Guide. And I just wanted to update you on that. Since 2011, on the green spaces side of the equation, the town has actively protected another 1,000 acres of farmland in northern Dutchess, which is remarkable. And then on the center side of the equation, just last week, the first major development proposal in the traditional neighborhood development district, formed just south of the village as part of a central reinforcement, was approved by the planning board, or preliminary approved by the planning board, for a mix of 102 houses, attached streets, townhouses, and smaller cottages. And this is the best part. Under the incentive zoning program that's instituted in that Centers and Green Spaces program, the developer will pay an additional $660,000 towards the town's purchase development grants program to fund additional green space protection in the farmlands of northern Red Hook. So you can really see the reciprocal relationship between the reinforcing centers and saving green spaces. And I think that's a real accomplishment at the local level that we should be all proud of. I also wanted to make a quick announcement. On October 28th, our department is presenting its latest initiatives. One of them involves Greenway. It's a new web-based planning tool featuring the Centers and Green Spaces Greenway Guide. It'll show local examples of where it's been working, and it will feature individual community pages with a lot more detailed mapping on the Centers and Green Spaces, and additional information on each municipality. So we're looking forward to rolling that out on the 28th. We'll also announce that we're working with local governments on the intermunicipal agreements to exempt a whole categories of referrals from the county referral process, so that local governments will save them about 20% of the paperwork and will help streamline the process. So I think that's something that local officials might want to attend on the 28th. And I guess finally I wanted to say, thank the county executives, nice words, and Barney's nice words, but I am not retiring. I'm moving on from the planning department, but I intend to stay active in the field. I just will decide what projects I'll work on my own these days. So that'll be something I look forward to. So I hope to see you in the near future, and thanks again, everybody.
Planning, of course, needs people. And people, when you have a person like John Clark, you get it done very well. And we want to thank you. We say, in appreciation for the service of John Clark, of the Hudson River Valley Greenway, and Mark Greenway. Yeah, this is up at Albany.
It's in the Hudson Islands.
No, but I mean the original one
is in the Albany.
The Albany Institute, because it looks like at least 10 Hudson River Valley sloops. John, this is wonderful. Don't go away.
Thank you very much. This is
Now, you see, that's congratulations. The Greenway Committee, Mark, why don't you handle these four trailers and the grants, please?
All right, our newest Greenway community, because we're still exporting this idea of Greenway up in Saratoga County, is the town of Wilton, as a new Greenway community. Also, the city of Port Jervis in Orange County is the first community in Orange County to adopt the county's Greenway Compact Plan in Orange County. So, with those two, I think we can call for a motion, Chairman, to welcome them to the Greenway Community Compact. Winton Sally. All right.
All those in favor? Aye. Those opposed? Thank you.
Great. And while I'm up here, I'll just start with the grants program. We were really excited and challenged by this year's crop of Greenway Communities grants. We receive from the state every year $136,000 for this grant program. Again, these are catalyst grants focused on community planning, focused on regional planning and partnerships. This grant round, we had over $123,000 in requests for grant funding. So it made it very challenging for us to allocate the funds. And certainly we followed short on the need here, but it just drives home the point that there is so much need for these small catalyst grants throughout the Hudson River Valley. The first grant is to the city of Hudson in Columbia County. This is to develop a GIS program to identify natural resources in the city. This is a city in the state of New York that does not have GIS capabilities. So the Greenway and this small grant will move them into the 20th century or the 21st century. So this is a modest request for $3,700. Is anybody here from the city of Hudson? The next one is the town of Germantown in Columbia County. This is to update their 2007 comprehensive plan. I, as a young budding planner at the Greenway, worked directly with the town to develop their 2007 plan, and I hope they don't screw it up as much as I did in this time grant. This grant is for $5,000. The next one is the town of Hyde Park. This is to update their zoning to map and define the scenic overlay district and introduce options in the zoning for adaptive reuse opportunities. Is anyone here from the town of Hyde Park? Catherine, would you like to say a few words?
Thank you.
What's that?
Thank you.
Oh, thank you. You're welcome. The next one gets the award for the furthest town away from where we are today is the town of Salem in Washington County. This project Salem is actually one of the only communities in New York to dissolve its village, to actually get enough political support to dissolve a village. So this new consolidated municipality is looking to focus attention on how to revitalize the village while preserving its rural landscape in Salem. Is anybody here? Len Vidal from Martin Love Judas is the consultant on the project. Would you like to say a few words?
Well, you gave a good description, Mark. The town wants to thank you and appreciates your support.
Thanks, Glenn. The next grant is for the town of Waterford in Saratoga County. This is to develop a comprehensive plan and zoning ordinance update. This is for $5,000. Anybody here from Waterford? Glenn, man of the hour.
It's a busy month. The town's very thankful for the assistance. As you know, a lot of municipalities, their zoning is very outdated, and they're trying to come into the 21st century. So thank you very much.
Thanks, Glenn. The next grant is to the town of Gallatin in Columbia County. This is to develop GIS capacity for the town. Many of you know Lisa DeLue as the maven for the Harlem Valley Rail Trail, but she is here today to say a few words about this project as the clerk for Gallatin.
And I would like to turn this over to Councilman Fraser Patterson, John Patterson, who brought this thought into what's going to be a really phenomenal project, not only for Gallatin, but for a lot of the surrounding areas. We're very proud.
I'd like to thank the Greenway for awarding Gallatin this grant. We have big plans in Gallatin. I'd just like to touch on a few things. What we plan on doing is purchasing Esri ArcMap desktop. We're going to convert our maps that are in the comprehensive plan to Esri GIS format. And then we're going to give all departments in the town Google Earth Pro, which is now a free download, so that each department will be able to view each map and distribute them as they see fit. The residents come in, ask a question, email Lisa, email building, code enforcement officer, planning board. They'll be able to look on Google Earth Pro at all our maps and be able to email them, export them, do whatever they want to do. And by the way, it's free. Google Earth is free now. Also, we have a 26-acre parcel owned by the town that we're going to turn into a conservation area. We'll also put this in GIS format on our website and convert this into a conservation area for there'll be parking there. Initially, we're going to use be a fishing area. We have the DEC involved so that they can stock. The road jam flows through this 26-acre parcel, and it will lend itself very nice to fishing initially. And then we want to eventually make trails, and it will be like a 1 mile hike around the perimeter and along the road jam. Also, Gallatin is a very unique town, and it doesn't have its own fire department. We subcontract to 5 different fire departments. Fire protection. It's Taconic, Livingston, Marlin, Pine Plains, and Anchor. What we're going to do with GIS, we're going to develop a water source GIS map so that, because when an Anchor fire department comes into a Livingston area, they're in an unfamiliar territory, and they are might be confused as to where the water would be or dry hydrants would be. So we're going to create a GIS map. We're going to store that on Google My Maps, and we're going to give that to the fire department so that they can use their handheld device to follow. When they go into an area, they'll be well versed as to the water sources, so we can help save structures and lives. So that's just a few aspects that we plan to do with the money. I want to thank you again. We'll put the money to good use.
Thank you, Councilman. The next grant we have is to the City of Port Jervis, our newest Greenway Compact community. This is for Hudson Valley Main Street's economic development strategy. This project is in partnership with Pattern for Progress, who is a leading voice and advocate for regional issues in the Hudson Valley. Paul Hess is here from Pattern for Progress to say a few words about the project.
Hi, thank you. Good morning again. On behalf of the grantee, the City of Port Jervis, and the 2 co-sponsors on this project, the Village of Wabash Falls here in Dutchess County, and the Village of Haverstraw in Rockland County, we want to thank the Greenway for its generosity in supporting this project. This will, leverage, Pattern's continued efforts working with these 3 communities and other communities throughout the Hudson Valley. Making sure that our urban centers, which probably everyone in this room agrees, and I agree with the county executive's statements that he made at the beginning of this, that our urban centers are really, one of our greatest assets here in the Hudson Valley, and we want to make them the strongest and the best places that they can be. So, just short and brief. Thank you so much.
Thanks. The next grant is to the Village of Ellenville, who themselves is just about to embark on a downtown revitalization plan. Our focus is on Center Street and Market Street here. Again, to talk about this project is Glenn Galley from the Department of Regions.
Well, the village mayor has been turning in support today. We wanted me to tell you much rather be here. This is an interesting project in that, as people know, as part of the casino sweepstakes, Ellenville was one of the potential sites, and we've always been working with the village to come up with Plan B, and they're trying to implement Plan B. This is a small part of a big $1 billion pot of money that the village has leveraged in the county that's going to focus on a strategic part of the business downtown core area to deal with what we plan is called a high level of social misbehaviors. So thank you very much.
Excellent. I'm going to start using that social business index. The final grant is to the Village of Voorheesville up in Albany County. This is for Voorheesville Wayfinding Signage Project. There's a new Albany County rail trail that's coming online that's going to take you from the city of Albany all the way out to Voorheesville. So the folks in Voorheesville are trying to be positioned as a destination for recreation, and this road project will help orient visitors to the rail trail, to the village center, and vice versa. So this grant is for $7,500. And that's our slate of Greenway community grants.
Thank you very much, Mark. Yeah, that's a grant, and it is a rather grand total of $57,484. All of these grants were reviewed by a grant committee of the Greenway. And thank you all very much for your kind attention on that. We've come a long way with these grants. It's a sizable sum, and who would have ever thought we could have gotten this much together? I think you get special credit for that, because he is a planner, and he's planned it now. I would like to have a single motion to approve these nine grants. 9 grants, okay? And a second? Okay, all those in favor, please indicate by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed? Okay, thank you very much, Mark. Now, what else do we have here? Well, that's it? We're not going to do heritage, are we? Okay, all right. Okay, so we've now closed off the meeting of the council, and we're now open the meeting of the Hudson River Valley National Heritage Area, and I'm calling it to order. And the ramble, Mark, you can do that, right? Yes. And also the guidebook, and okay, off you go. There you go.
All right, thanks, Chairman. We'll be quick. We've actually had a lot of news to report in the National Heritage Area realm since June. We just completed at the end of September our Hudson River Valley Ramble event. This was the biggest and baddest ramble that we've had so far. I'd like to thank Dan Jeanson, who's on our staff, for managing the ramble, and all of our partners. This year, through a partnership with I Love New York, we were able to invest more in marketing and advertising for the ramble than we've ever had before. And it looks like through anecdotal reports that most of our partners either met or exceeded the amount of people that they had to participate in the ramble. This year, with the guidance of the National Heritage Area Management Committee, we invested more heavily in social media. That's resulted in our engagement on social media increased by 46%. Our total reach through social media this year was over 400,000 people in the Hudson Valley area and the surrounding metropolitan region. It turns out through our survey that most people were very satisfied with the Ramble experience, and that's a testament to all the organizations that hosted Ramble events and do this kind of thing all the time. So again, I'd just like to thank our partners, our funding sponsors, I Love New York, the New York, New Jersey Trail Conference, the Hudson River Estuary Program, the National Park Service, New York State Office of Parks, Recreation, and Historic Preservation, and the over 160 organizations that partner with us to put on Ramble events every year. So it's just an amazing, continues to be an amazing event that showcases the Hudson River Valley. The next item on the agenda that I want to bring up is the Hudson River Valley National Heritage Area Guidebook reprint. You'll see in my Executive Director's report a sample cover page for the newly redesigned Heritage Area Guidebook. It's intended to be a sort of a paper copy of our website, and really intended to be a tool that people can carry with them to orient them to the history and the historic sites in the Hudson River Valley National Heritage Area. We have completely redesigned the guidebook to reflect National Park Service design standards, so visually it's more connected with the gravitas of the National Park Service to reflect the significance of the history of our Hudson River Valley. We are currently in the process of finalizing the website design for our new HudsonRiverValley.com website. The new website will feature all the bells and whistles of websites that they should feature nowadays, including responsive design, dynamic content. And our new website will really be a tool and an asset for our heritage area partners in that it will connect sites together, and it will also make it a lot easier for people to find events that are happening throughout the region and around particular sites and locations. The Teaching Hudson Valley Institute was held also in July this year. This was, like most other years, a success, and many thanks to Debbie Duke for leading that initiative to convene teachers and educators to talk about place-based education in the Hudson River Valley. As you will see in my Executive Director's report, our Explore Awards connected over 3,000 students this year to our historic and environmental resources to get them out in the field to experience the places for themselves, and in that way learn how to be conservationists and how to be environmental students. So we just really thank the National Park Service and Debbie Duke for their work to use the Hudson River Valley as an outdoor classroom for that.
Smart.
Yes.
The academic arm of the Hudson River Valley National Heritage Area Study.
Absolutely.
I brought the latest copy of Hudson River Valley Review for you. You'll see Valkill is on the cover, so it's dedicated to Eleanor and Valkill. There's an article based on the Aldridge family papers. There's an article on the Troy fire. There's an article on the Lady Washington, part of the battle at Fort Montgomery on Loudmouth. So I have these for you on your way out. Got a lecture tomorrow night at Marist at Nellie Valetti Theater. Carol Holzer is going to talk about the 1864 election. And you know that he's probably the world's leading expert on Abraham Lincoln, so you'll be hearing from the best. 7 o'clock, Nellie Valetti. It's out electronically in all kinds of different ways. On the 24th, we're going to highlight one of the National Heritage Area's great dimensions, landscaping. We're having a symposium at Marist on B.J. Downing, bicentennial of his birth, and we will have speakers who represent everybody knows everything about Downing, and so that's on the 24th at Marist. Did you want to mention the Knox?
I'm going to mention Knox and Rochelle.
Yes.
Thank you, Colonel. Next on the agenda is my executive director's report, so I'll go through that quickly. And Colonel, I'd like to thank you for all your work on the Washington-Rochambeau National Historic Trail and route. This past September, the National Park Service distributed 15 interpretive signs at locations where the French Army camped and stayed in the Hudson River Valley. These interpretive signs were paid for by a grant that was originally secured by the Greenway back in 2007. As the wheels of government turn slowly, it is 2015, and we're thankful that these signs are being installed finally. These are the first interpretive elements to be installed on this National Historic Trail, which was designated in 2009. Many thanks to the Colonel's efforts for that designation. And New York once again leads in interpretation of history and highlighting our role in the Hudson River Valley to this really significant international partnership is really significant. We're just very proud of being part of the project. And thank you, Colonel. There were various ribbon cuttings at the end of September, notably at the Fishkill Supply Depot and elsewhere in the Hudson Valley to unveil these signs. I wanted to also mention Panther History Weekend. The Greenway, again, worked closely with Island of New York to administer Panther History Weekend, which is a similar but statewide event focused on New York's history. We worked closely with the Greater Hudson Heritage Network and managed the day-to-day administration of the event. This year, the event grew by 60% compared to last year's weekend-over-weekend total. As with the Ramble, the celebration of New York's history through Panther History Weekend pays dividends by highlighting all the tremendous work of organizations that are working to connect people with the tremendous story of New York State. One of my favorite things to do is to go to happy hour. And this year, the Greenway National Heritage Area has worked with a number of partners in the Albany area in particular on developing a program called History Happy Hour in and around the city of Albany. The mayor of the city of Albany is really interested in how to promote heritage tourism, and is convening a volunteer working group of which I'm a member. Working with a number of organizations in the city of Albany, we've put together this informal program of History Happy Hours. The latest one we held at the end of September at Schuyler Mansion. We worked closely with the Friends Group and others. And the last time the Friends Group tried to do a fundraiser, they mailed out invitations to their membership. And we're lucky if they got 50 people. This time through the partnership, we introduced them to online ticketing, we introduced them to social media, and they had over 120 people show up without having to front any money for capital for promotion for this event. So not only are we building a community in Albany for heritage tourism, which is something we hope to do in the Hudson Valley, but we're also helping Friends groups do a better job and get more familiar with how they can reach out to people that are interested in history. I wanted to also mention a very significant thing that we worked for many years with the DPC to do, which is develop public access at Newton Hook in Columbia County. The Greenway has held about $150,000 for a project. We received this money originally in 1998, 5. And it's, as I mentioned before, the wheels of government sometimes turn slowly, so 20 years later, we happily are able to report we finally had a ribbon cutting for a new public access point and pavilion at Newton Hook, so we're very excited to be a part of that project. And I would just like to recognize and thank my predecessors, Dave Sampson and David Sedera, for working on that project, and they were pleased as punch to hear that something was finally happening at Newton Hook, as we all were. And I'll close my executive director's report to thank, as I always do, this tremendous staff, Scott Keller, Dan Jeanson, Chanel Johnson, and our newest intern, Desiree Mayo, for doing such a great job putting this event together and keeping all the things that we do at the Greenway on the straight and narrow. We asked them to do a lot of work, and we asked them all to wear a lot of different hats, and they do so without complaint and oftentimes with an unprompted smile on their face. So just join me in thanking the staff members of the Greenway.
You would say, hardly a man is not allowed to remember that, but we have a long memory, and one of the, it's not a memory, but it's a pleasure. Jim Johnson, Colonel James Johnson, has done a remarkable number of things, and he's about to complete that damn trail, James. Right?
Every night's to go, but we're working on that.
And of course, it's not only Colonel Johnson, it's Professor, and he has an endowed chair at Marist, and we are grateful, Jim, for the work that you've done and will be doing for the Greenway in the Hudson River Valley. Now, I think that it's time to ask for comments from them, please. Yes, sir.
I just want to invite all of you to a conference that will be at Mohawk Mountain House called The Costs and Benefits of Sustaining Conserved Spaces. There's a lot of, I shouldn't say a lot, there is some money available, as we all know, for acquiring open space from municipalities and through other venues. But there isn't always accompanying money to manage and keep those open spaces available and accessible. So we've invited some really knowledgeable, stellar people to come. It'll be at the Mountain House on November 9th. Our keynote speaker will be Carol Ash, who I'm sure you all remember as our former Director of Open Space and Historic Preservation. And we have a really sketchy guy named Mark Castilian who will be on one of our panels as well. All in all, we have about a dozen speakers. It's a full day at Mohawk Mountain House. You can go to mohawk-consultations.org. Did you get a chance to print up the flyer? Okay, there may be a flyer waiting for you on your way out, but you can always get the details at mohawk-consultations.org.
Any other questions, comments, ideas? Yes.
First, I'd like to thank Greenway for a grant to the Land Trust for the Dutchess County Annual Trail Conference, which was this past Saturday. I thank you, Mark, for participating. But one of the wonderful outcomes is that Dutchess County will be supporting the Land Trust, Dutchess County Planning, on quarterly roundtable discussions, and we will be bringing together stakeholders in trails for Dutchess County. And so this will be an ongoing effort. So those of us that have been intimately involved with developing the trails, planning the trails, can come together and work as a county, intermunicipal efforts, perhaps with some CFA grants, but it's going to be a great opportunity in the future.
Mr. Chairman, may we have a word from the Simpson Museum?
Well, thank you. I'm Brent Glass, formerly Director of the National Museum of American History at the Smithsonian. Before that, I was the State Historic Preservation Officer in Pennsylvania, so at a time when many heritage areas and heritage parks were being established, and so I really admire the work of the Greenway and what you're doing. I'm now advising, and I'm here with Jerry Fayella from the historic Hudson River towns who have asked me to advise on creating a new museum at Sing Sing Prison. And the state of New York has allocated about $350,000 in planning money and about $1 million for rehabilitation of two historic buildings. One, the 1936 powerhouse, which is just outside the prison boundaries, which will be the headquarters of the museum and other activities related to the mission of the museum. And the second building is the 1825 cell block, the historic cell block, which is within the prison, which is an extraordinary ruins of an amazing building that was where the prison began. I'm advising on three areas. One is to select a preservation architect to prepare plans and specifications for the stabilization of the two historic buildings. Second is to identify a consultant to prepare a program plan for visitor experience at the museum. And that would also include developing partnerships with organizations and municipalities that may have an interest in the prison museum, and I think many are represented around this in this room. And third is to help develop a governing structure for the museum, creating a board of directors, and we are going to be asking for suggestions from people who could serve on the board of directors. And if any of you have ideas of people who would be good members of a new board, creating a very unusual and unique museum, because we're not only going to be focusing on the history of Sing Sing, but also on some of the contemporary issues that we read about every day in the newspapers about criminal justice and the national conversation which is occurring now about those issues. And Sing Sing Prison represents that opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you. Is it Gordon Lawless, was he the great man at Sing Sing?
Yeah.
Okay. Any other questions, comments? Yes? No? All right, well then, we got through another meeting, and we won't meet again until next year. Mark has put a tentative January 13th, that's not a Friday, but we'll let everyone know what do you think the meeting might be?
We will let you know shortly.
Okay, in other words, you guys know. So thank you all very much.
I thought we had agreed that we would have a meeting as a conference call.
It's something we need to discuss, depending on other things that we need.
Questions, comments? Thank you all very much. See you in 2016.
Find out what happened.
Water on you.